Halloween 2. More of the night he came home. The movie opens up with a recap of the ending of the first film. After the recap, the movie just takes off right where the first one left off.
He's still on the loose!
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
We then get another classic opening credits, complete with a jack-o'-lantern and all. This time, as it zooms into the pumpkin, it splits apart, revealing a skull inside. After the epic intro, we get a POV shot of Michael roaming around the back streets.
I shot him 6 times! I shot him in the heart! I shot him 6 times! This guy is mad and he's not human!
Michael walks up to a house and peers into the window to see Mrs. Elrod making some sandwiches. Michael sneaks in unnoticed and grabs the knife off the cutting board.
Look, there comes one of them now.
She'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of here.
We then see Michael walk up to Alice's house.
Mrs. Elrod? Mr. Elrod?
He sneaks up behind Solid Snake style and stabs the fuck out of her. Yeah, this movie wastes no time with the killing. Cut over to the Doyle house to see Laurie being hauled into an ambulance and on her way to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital.
You know this chick? Yeah, her name's Laurie Strode. Her old man, Strode Realty? Yeah.
Laurie arrives at the hospital and they immediately sedate her, causing her to pass out and becoming an easier target for old Michael.
Please don't put me to sleep.
Loomis and Brackett are patrolling the streets. When Loomis thinks he sees Michael, they then chase the guy into the street where he gets mowed down by a cop car. Them super exploding movie cars, huh? But Loomis isn't sure if it's even Michael amongst the flames.
Is it him or not?
One of Brackett's fellow officers comes running up with some horrific news.
In the Doyle house, 3 kids. One of them was Annie.
But we as the audience already know of Annie's fate. Brackett then of course blames Loomis for Annie's death.
You let him out!
I didn't let him out. I gave orders for him to be restrained.
Loomis has a hunch that Michael is still out there.
An hour ago, I stood up and fired 6 shots into him. He just got up and walked away.
I am talking about the real possibility that he is still out there.
He tells one of the officers to meet him at the coroner's office so they can know for sure.
Get a dentist to meet me there in half an hour.
Thing is, Michael is far from dead and is on his way to Haddonfield Memorial Hospital. We see one of the nurses pull up and we get this super chilling scene here. Cut to the security booth where we see the guard just not paying attention to the monitors like he should be. Shit's gonna bite you in your ass later on, Top Flight. In the hospital cafeteria, they're watching the news when Janet tells Bud how her friend saw Michael Myers.
She stopped at a light and saw him walking in that field behind the Lost River Diamond. Julie said he was so creepy.
Julie's full of shit. He didn't escape until last night.
Michael is just lurking around the hospital in this creepy scene here.
Mrs. Carr, 9.
Cut to Laurie's room where Jimmy is telling her just who was trying to kill her.
Michael Myers. He was the guy that was after you.
In the Myers house? The little kid who killed his sister?
Yeah.
He's in a hospital somewhere.
He escaped last night.
But she just doesn't understand why he would come after her.
Why me?
We'll get to that later on.
Time's up, Jimmy.
Phone lines have been cut because, you know, scary movie. So Mrs. Alves sends Janet to tell the guard so he can maybe fix it.
It'll take me 5 minutes.
But I don't even know how to use this thing.
But when he goes to check it out, he's just met with a hammer to the skull. Talk about a splitting fucking headache. Down at the morgue, Loomis and the coroner are inspecting the body, but it's too charred to be identified.
Positive ID. We check x-rays and dental records.
Take hours.
No other way to know for sure, I'm sorry.
We haven't got hours. You've got to assume that Michael Myers is still alive.
Cut to the Myers house where we see an angry mob starting a riot in front of the place.
The tribe. One of their number was butchered. This is the wake.
Then, more iconic dialogue from Loomis.
Force inside him, biding its time. He just waited. The staff was unprepared. They didn't know what he was.
This is where we find out that the guy in the mask from earlier that got demolished by the cop car was actually a high school student, Ben Tramer.
17, wearing a mask.
Oh, God.
Maybe we should check his dental record.
One of the officers tells them that there's been a break-in at the elementary school and are sure it's Myers. In the therapy room hot tub, Bud and his sexy big-titty nurse girlfriend are about to engage in some water sports when Michael decides to turn up the heat.
It's too hot in here now, Bud. Why don't you go check?
And of course, Bud gets up to go turn it down when Michael creeps up behind him like Sam Fisher or some shit and silently chokes the life out of him. Michael then stealthily sneaks up on Bud's unsuspecting big-titty nurse girlfriend. He literally boils her sexy ass alive.
Now, Bud, don't be that way.
Fuck! When Loomis and the gang arrive at the school, they find a morbid kid drawing of a family with a knife through it.
Sister.
Also, an eerie message written in blood on the chalkboard.
Samhain. It means the Lord of the Dead, the end of summer, the festival of Samhain.
Nurse Marion from the first film shows up to tell Loomis that he's being ordered back to Smith's Grove.
I can't leave Haddonfield now.
I'm afraid you don't have a choice. There's a marshal waiting for you outside.
Back at Haddonfield Memorial, Laurie isn't looking so hot, so Janet goes to tell Dr. Mixter, but finds him dead with a needle in his eye. Michael then appears from the darkness behind her and thrusts another needle into her temple. Brutal as fuck. Nurse Jill is looking after Laurie, and she gets a call to a patient in another room when Michael enters Laurie's room and stabs the shit out of the bed. But Laurie's gone. Turns out she faked the whole thing so she can make her escape because she had a feeling Michael was coming for her. Jimmy's worried about Laurie and is just roaming around the hospital for some reason when he comes up on a room where he sees Miss Alves laid out on a table with her blood literally being drained out of her body. Way to go, Jimmy boy! Nurse Jill goes out to her car to get the fuck out of there, I guess, when she notices that all the tires have been slashed. And it's not just her car, but all the cars. Yeah, it doesn't look like you're going anywhere. Nurse Jill finds Laurie, but unfortunately for her, finds Michael too. Epic. Then, the chase is on. The intensity of this chase is so fucking good. Laurie finds a security guard just hanging around and notices Michael closing in on her, so she climbs up through this tiny window and barely escapes him. Then we get this super suspenseful scene where she's waiting for the elevator door to close. That shit was too close for comfort, man. She runs out to the parking lot and hides in one of the cars. Cut to the marshal's car where Marion gives some good old exposition.
That Strode girl, that's Michael Myers' sister. She was born 2 years before he was committed. 2 years after, his parents died and she was adopted by the Strodes.
So, Laurie is Michael's sister, and because of some druid ritual, he must kill her like he did Judith?
He killed one sister 15 years ago, now he's trying to kill the other.
So now Loomis knows exactly why Michael came back home. After some convincing, Loomis and the gang head to the hospital to save Laurie from her murderous brother. Meanwhile, back in the car, it looks like Michael is walking up, but turns out to just be Jimmy. He passes out on the wheel, making the horn go fucking crazy. God damn it, Jimmy! Laurie sees Loomis and company show up and goes to get their attention, but she can't scream until it's too late.
Help me!
Laurie rises to her feet to go over there when she notices Michael in the distance. And we get yet another epic Michael closing in scene that is very reminiscent of the first film. Loomis opens the door just in time, and then Michael literally walks straight through the fucking glass door. Loomis immediately shoots him the fuck down. He then tells Marion to go to the car and call for help. For some reason, the dumbass marshal bends down like an idiot to make sure he's dead, and this happens. In a very Terminator-like approach, the Shape stalks them throughout the dark hospital in one of the most iconic killer chase scenes ever. They find themselves trapped in an operating room. In a last desperate act, Dr. Loomis gives Laurie one of his guns. The Shape breaks through the wooden door and stabs Loomis in the stomach. Michael advances on Laurie, and he's really closing in now when she calls him out by name, and he kind of stops like it fazed him. But he keeps coming. She then pulls the gun on him and shoots him in his fucking eyes. Such a legendary image. Loomis tells Laurie to get the hell out of there, and then he blows his evil ass the fuck up.
It's time, Michael.
Then from out of the raging fire, we see Michael is still coming after her until he falls over and is engulfed by the flames. The movie pretty much ends with Laurie being taken away in an ambulance and the sounds of Mr. Sandman playing as the credits start to roll.
Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream.
Now that was fucking awesome. And that's Halloween 2, folks. I definitely highly recommend you check this one out. Gotta go ahead and talk about Dick Warlock's portrayal as Michael. He has this very stoic, very robotic movement that just gave the Shape a style. He's almost got this animatronic swagger about him. The head tilts, arms at the side not moving when he walks. He has a super strength, and even down to the way his mask looks is iconic. When you see that mask, you instantly know it's Warlock. Truly an iconic performance indeed. One of my hands down favorite Michael Myers portrayals. Also, Donald Pleasence again as Dr. Loomis was amazing. What can I say? The man was made for the role. He is Dr. Loomis.
Is this some kind of joke? I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight.
You don't know what death is.
Jamie Lee Curtis is okay in this movie. She doesn't really have much dialogue. She barely speaks. Don't get me wrong, she's iconic as fuck. But in this movie, she's mostly just laying around in a hospital bed. But when she's running away from Michael, I'm still on the edge of my seat every step of the way. This was definitely a good sequel, and at the time it was the end, and Michael was actually dead. Well, until Halloween 4, that is, when they brought him back because of popular demand. But if you watch the first one and this one back to back, it is a very good definitive end to the story. It was supposed to be, hence why Halloween 3 didn't have him in it at all. All around, a very classic horror flick, and most definitely worth a watch. Scott86, go check out the horror classic that is Halloween 2. It's totally fire.
Let's get